UFC Fight Night, Paris, France. Main event this weekend in the heavyweight division. We have got Le Bon Gamin Gane taking on Serghei Spivac. In the co-main event, you've got potentially number one contenders fight in the women's flyweight division. We have got Thug-Rose Namajunas taking on Manon Fiorot. Of course, that's going to be Rose's first fight at 125. For Manon Fiorot, it's a potential number one contenders fight, but again, you kind of feel like the next number one contender is going to be Erin Blanchfield after a win over Tyler Santos in Singapore. Of course, you got Grasso and Shevchenko fighting in a couple weeks in Las Vegas, but we'll have to wait and see. Of course, though, that's your co-main event. You've got 11 fights on this card after Munin Gafarov just dropped out of the card, so you got 11 fights now on this Fight Night card. Before we get into the actual predictions itself, and folks, real quick, if you haven't yet, make sure that subscribe button down below for some more UFC here on the channel. We're gonna go over some contender series because it's something I've kind of been doing. Well, I haven't really been doing. I've been saying some in the comment section down below. But here are the contender series picks. You can go over these real quickly. If you want more clarification on a pick, I will. I'd be happy to provide it in the comment section. So first fight, we've got Carlos taking on Mitch Ramirez. So Ramirez is undefeated, but Carlos is 16-6. He's fought way better competition. He's got way more knockout power. I think he's gonna win the fight by first round knockout. Then you've got the babyface assassin from the Netherlands taking on Marco Silva. Now, taking Marco Silva, the babyface assassin, I believe, I'm pretty sure, he fought Pereira in kickboxing. Again, really good kickboxer. But I'm going to take the underdog here from Brazil, just because, again, I think the wrestling advantage and the jiu-jitsu advantage, I think Silva's going to take him down. Silva will be able to finish him once that fight does end up on the ground. Next up, we've got Vogel versus Timothy Kwamba. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his name. I think Vogel wins. Vogel's a way better fighter. 8-2, way better skills on the ground. I think he wins this fight pretty decisively by second round submission. It's one of the fights that I think is probably the easier ones to pick, but the easiest one to pick is by far this one, Thomas Pedersen versus Chandler Cole. Chandler Cole's a guy who lost in the PFL against Ante Dilia a couple fights ago. He's come back. He's won 2 fights against guys who are 8-11 and 5-17. Now they're giving Chandler Cole a shot on the contender series. He's a guy who couldn't really make it in the PFL, and he's going to get a shot on the contender. It doesn't make any sense. Thomas Pedersen is going to win this fight no matter what. I really think this is a mismatch. In your main event, you've got Dylan Salvador taking on Oki here. I think Salvador actually wins. On Tapology, a lot of people going with the Belgian fighter here, but I'm going to take Salvador to win. I think he's the way better fighter. I think he's able to get this fight down. I think he's able to win by submission. I think he gets this one done again by first round submission. So those are the contender series picks. Not going to go over that too, much in depth, but okay, now on to the card. We will start off here first in the bantamweight division. We have got Fairn Basharat taking on Cledson Rodrigues. You get this fight here with Fairn Basharat. He is a huge favorite going into this one because he's undefeated. He's 10-0. He's coming off his last fight and his only fight in the UFC so far, which they win over Damone Blackshear. Now, Damone Blackshear, again, is a guy who, fought twice in 7 days, didn't get the win in his second fight against Mario Bautista, fight that a lot of people thought Blackshear won. Now, I thought it was close. I thought Bautista should have got the nod, and he did get the nod, but that was a very close fight. Anyways, Basharat beat Damone Blackshear in his last fight. He takes on a guy here in Cledson Rodrigues, who Rodrigues is 1-1 in the UFC, lost his first fight to CJ Vergara, then wins his next one against Shannon Ross. Now, the Ross fight, it's a fight where Rodrigues misses weight. Now, again, Shannon Ross, not the best UFC fighter, I'll just be honest with you. So it was really expected that Rodrigues was going to go out there and pick up the victory, which he did. So 1-1 now in the UFC. The CJ Vergara fight is close. You can make the case that Cledson Rodrigues does get the victory. It comes down to the third round. Really, the first round's Rodrigues. The second round is Vergara. You look at the third round, you basically score that third round based on damage. I could go either way with that one, honestly, but that was at UFC 274 over there in Arizona. Now, again, Fairn Basharat, huge favorite, currently at -290. You got +235 for Cledson Rodrigues. I think the obvious pick here is going to be the Afghani fighter in Fairn Basharat. Basharat, again, 10-0 so far professionally, really good ground fighter. You look at the Damone Blackshear fight. Blackshear's a guy who was good on the ground. Hell, the guy pulled off a twister in the UFC, and Fairn Basharat went in there and really dominated him. He didn't dominate the ground, but had his way on the ground, won moments in that fight, and won the fight 2-1. Again, picking up his first win in the UFC. The guy's undefeated. I'll just be honest with you. I think he stays undefeated in this fight. I don't think Cledson Rodrigues is able to go out there and beat him. Rodrigues, again, a guy who came in through the contender series. Again, 1-1 in the UFC since then. Basharat has been really good. He's really good with his ground game. He won the contender series also. You look at the Tapology picks. You've got 96% going with Fairn Basharat, 4% going with Cledson Rodrigues. Again, not much value at the -290 pick for Basharat. I think Basharat probably wins on point. Some would say Fairn Basharat by unanimous decision. But again, really not much else to say with this. I don't think Cledson Rodrigues is able to compete with the groundwork that Basharat's able to put on him. I think, again, Rodrigues' best spot in this fight is to try to go out there and try to strike with him. But I don't think Basharat is going to let him do that. I think Basharat will be able to take him down repeatedly. Basharat's going to be able to keep him down. That's why I think Basharat, the heavy favorite in this fight, is able to win this one by unanimous decision. So on to our next one. We have got the UFC return of the former Cage Warriors champion in McKee. He's going to be taking on Loosa in this fight. Loosa 1-1 in the UFC. For McKee, his first stint in the promotion went 0-2. Now, I didn't think he should have been cut the first time around because look at his 2 fights. Okay, their losses to Khamzat Chimaev and Alex Morono. Now again, McKee was a guy who they put into the UFC, and he gets signed, and his agent tells him, "You've been signed to the UFC, but you're fighting Khamzat Chimaev." Now, again, not the first fight that you want to have in your UFC run. Obviously, Khamzat went in there and smashed him. Again, McKee got outstruck 40-0 in that fight. Khamzat Chimaev held him down, TKO'd him, won the fight by first round TKO. Now, McKee bounces back. Well, he doesn't really win the fight, but he comes back in November, loses a fight to Alex Morono. He drops it by unanimous decision. It's a fight that gets halted for like 3 minutes because McKee's mouthpiece falls out of the octagon, and Herb Dean and everyone's got to scramble to find it around the apex. They eventually just gave McKee's mouthpiece back. I think they washed it out with water. If they didn't, that's disgusting. But McKee gets Loosa in this fight. You look at the odds, just quickly, McKee is a slight underdog to Loosa, which I really don't understand. As of now, again, McKee's sitting at plus 155. Don't really like those odds for Loosa. This is a guy who's 1-1 in the UFC, came in, lost a striking affair against Mounir Lazzez in his first fight, dropped every single round, and then he went in there and beat AJ Fletcher in his next fight. But AJ Fletcher hasn't set the world on fire in the UFC. I know he beat Themba Gorimbo in his last fight. He gets Brian Battle next in about a month's time. But again, Fletcher started his UFC run 0-2, losing to Semelsberger and Loosa. He then beats Themba Gorimbo, who's 1-1 in the UFC. Again, it's the best win, but he goes out there and he does beat down AJ Fletcher on the feet. And again, McKee, since being dropped by the UFC, goes to Cage Warriors. His first fight in Cage Warriors, a co-main event spot where he wins by 3rd round TKO. His next fight is for the vacant welterweight championship over there in Cage Warriors. He goes in there, he beats Justin Burleson by TKO in the 3rd round. Burleson, a very good fighter in his own right. He got a shot in the Contender Series, lost to Johan Lainus of all people, but still, again, McKee goes in there, wins the fight by TKO, and then defends his championship in his last fight, wins it by 4th round TKO at the corner stoppage. So McKee goes to Cage Warriors, or back to Cage Warriors, because he was in Cage Warriors before the Khamzat fight. He comes in after, again, the UFC stint, wins the welterweight championship, comes out of it now a UFC fighter once more. They book him for the Paris card against Loosa. Now, again, McKee is not just a striker. He's been able to win by submission before in the past. You look at his wins prior to that first run in the UFC in Cage Warriors. He picked up one by guillotine choke. Again, that was against a guy who was 8-6 at the time. But McKee is capable of getting it done down there as well. I just don't think you're going to see the fight hit the mat here. I think you're going to see pretty much a striking fight. Again, McKee in that run outside the UFC has really shown a polished striking game. I think his striking game has gotten a whole lot better, and I think it's definitely going to be a better McKee in the second run in the UFC than what we saw in that first stint. Again, I think it was just the wrong opponents. Again, you get sent in against Khamzat Chimaev first, and then Alex Morono, who is a veteran of the sport, who is a good fighter in his own right. You get, again, sent against those two guys, and now here you are. You come back after winning 3 straight fights in Cage Warriors, winning a Cage Warriors championship. I think it's important, again, McKee's getting this shot. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, and I think he's going to win. Even at an underdog, he's an underdog currently at plus 155. Really like the line here for Ireland's own, or North Ireland's own, McKee. I think Skeletor is able to go out there. I think he's able to, use his reach advantage. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage. He's going to be the way taller fighter in this fight. He's sitting at 6'2". Angelosa 5'10". I think McKee's able to keep his distance. I think he's able to really strike at range, and I think McKee's able to go out there and win this fight. I think eventually he's going to find that shot, and eventually he will put Loosa down. Loosa has never been finished in his career. I think McKee will be the first. Give me the plus 155 underdog, and McKee to go out there and win this fight. I think he'll get it done by 2nd round TKO. On to our third fight. It's a fight between Jocelyn Edwards here and Nora Cornolle. For Nora, she comes into this fight. This will be her UFC debut. No spot in the contender either. She comes right into the UFC, taking on Jocelyn Edwards. Obviously, for Nora, she is a French fighter. That's kind of why she is here. But she's 34 years old, so an older, that's an older age, at least, for a fighter making their UFC debut. For Jocelyn Edwards, 13-4 professionally for La Pantera. She has won her last 2 fights by split decision, but she has missed weight in both of those fights at bantamweight. Now she gets another fight at bantamweight here. Will she make weight this time? I don't know, but Jocelyn Edwards is 4-2 in the UFC. She has been good in the promotion so far, barely winning fights over Lucia Puzelova in her last fight in Kansas City. Puzelova had a lot of success on the ground, but when that fight was on the feet, Jocelyn Edwards was definitely winning. The fight against Ji-Yeon Kim, again, was pretty much just a striking fight. Thought Edwards should have got the nod on that one, and she did. Before that, for Jocelyn Edwards, she beats Ramona Pascual at 145. Again, Ramona Pascual, actually, no, that fight might have been at 35, because Pascual's fighting against Josiane Nunez was at 145. No, okay. Pascual and Edwards was at 145, and honestly, like, Jocelyn Edwards, if she can't make weight in this fight, she should be fighting 145. Like, she should honestly be fighting 145 just in the first place, because again, she's missed weight twice in a row. Before the Pascual fight, she gets dominated on the ground by Jessica Rose Clark, who I don't believe is no longer in the UFC, but Jessica Rose Clark goes in there and just completely grounds Jocelyn Edwards. She loses to Carol Hosa before that in their UFC debut. She beats Wu Yanan. The way to beat Jocelyn Edwards is to take her down. Now, for Nora, she is able to find success with her grappling. She's fought a lot in UAE Warriors. That's where she fought her last fight. Didn't even fight on the UAE Warriors main card. She was on the She was on the undercard for her last UAE Warriors fight that she did compete on. But the strength of schedule just isn't there. Her last fighter was 4-2, now 4-3, obviously. A fighter making their debut before that, 12-10, 1-0, 2-0, 3-2, and then losing her first fight against Jacqueline Cavalcanti, who we're going to see later on in this card against Zara Fairn dos Santos. We're going to talk about that mess in a second. But I just really don't see it at Nora Cornolle here. Again, 3-0, fighting out of UAE Warriors. Again, French-born fighter, that's the reason she is on the card. But where does she really beat Jocelyn Edwards? Not on the feet, I don't think so. I think Jocelyn Edwards is the better striker, honestly. I think she is. On the ground, yeah, maybe that's where Nora has the advantage, and that's probably where she has to win this fight, because I don't see, again, her beating Jocelyn Edwards on the feet. But I don't really see it. I think Jocelyn Edwards is able to keep the fight standing. I don't think Nora's really got the greatest. Oh, she's got a decent ground game, but I think Edwards will be able to build back up. There's a chance she misses weight again, which probably goes to her advantage, because she's missed weight in her last 2 fights and she's won both those fights. I'm going to go with Jocelyn Edwards here. I'm going to take the fighter out of Panama here in Edwards. I think she wins this fight by unanimous decision. On Tapology, again, people going with Nora to win this fight, 59% to 41. Again, Edwards is a slight favorite, and we are going to be rocking with the slight favorite in this fight. The UFC experience is there, definitely. Again, this will be her 7th fight in the UFC, taking on a fighter making their debut. And it's not like Edwards doesn't win in the UFC. She is 4-2 in the promotion. Famously, Paulo Costa said that Jocelyn Edwards looked like Israel Adesanya. I'm not going to comment on that. But I really think it's a surefire, not surefire pick, but I think Jocelyn Edwards does pick up the victory here. I think she's able to go out there and really just outstrike Nora Cornolle and win this fight. So give me Jocelyn Edwards by unanimous decision. Next up, I don't know what to make out of this. You have got Zara Fairn, who is 6-5 and 0-3 in the UFC, here in the women's bantamweight division, taking on Jacqueline Cavalcanti here. So Jacqueline Cavalcanti fighting out of Portugal, but born in Brazil, 25 years old, undefeated outside of the PFL, so she's 5-1. Her one loss being Martina Jindrova. Now, last year, Martina Jindrova had a really good season in the PFL. This season was really bad. For Jindrova last year, she beats Cavalcanti in the PFL Challenger Series, comes in, beats Vanessa Mello by unanimous decision, beats Jamagul Falzianova by TKO ground pound in the first round. But again, Zamagul is like literally the worst fighter the PFL I think has had ever. Then Jindrova gets booked in the playoffs. She's a 3-seed fighting the 2-seed Kayla Harrison. She loses in the first round, comes back this year, drops one to Amber Liebrock in the first round by knockout. Now Amber Liebrock got put away in the playoffs in the first round, and then loses to Julia Budd after that by unanimous decision. Obviously, the Budd fight kind of a mismatch, but she did not have a good show for herself in a fight that she was a -250 favorite in against Stockton's own. I believe Liebrock's from Stockton. Hayward's own, sorry, Amber Liebrock. Anyways, that's Jacqueline Cavalcanti's one loss. Again, since then, she's gone on to UAE Warriors, beating a fighter who is 6-8, then a 1-0 fighter, then a 4-1 fighter in her last fight in an LFA main event. Of course, Cavalcanti is the reigning and defending bantamweight champion over there in LFA. But again, Zara Fairn dos Santos just isn't very good. She's 0-3 in the UFC. She has been in the UFC since 2019. Yeah, losing a fight to Megan Anderson by triangle choke in the first round. She lost to Felicia Spencer by TKO. And then she just lost to Josiane Nunes by unanimous decision. It makes sense they put her on this card. It is a card in France. She was booked to be on the card in France last year against Aline Perez. Obviously, of course, Fairn does not make that fight because of medical issues. So they rebook her for that card in Brazil. She loses. And then they say, all right, well, you've had 3 shots at featherweight in the UFC. They booked her at a catch weight of 139. She weighed in at 147. That was all the way back on a fight night, Whitaker versus Gaslam. They book her against Josiane Nunes. She loses. Now she goes down to 35 here to take on Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Cavalcanti again fought Martina Jindrova at 155 lightweight. So just, think about that and take that into account. That's 20 pounds up from what Cavalcanti, is actually fighting at. Now, again, a lot of the PFL fighters that they used to have a lightweight were featherweights. That's why obviously they are at 145 now, because again, pretty much there is no women's lightweight outside of the PFL. So that's why, again, Kayla Harrison's going to drop to 145 when she comes back. That's why Larissa Pacheco was able to drop. That's why Martina Jindrova was able to drop. That's why Julia Budd obviously was able to drop. It just makes a lot more sense. I think when they give Bellator to, and if they can add Chris Cyborg and, Kat Zingano and, Liam McCourt, I think that it'll be a lot better for them because right now the PFL's division is horrible. Larissa Pacheco is going to win her 2nd straight championship, and honestly, I think Pacheco will have a shot even when they add the Bellator fighter. It's just that I think, again, you can't have Larissa Pacheco versus Olena Kolesnik 3 times in the playoffs. It doesn't make sense. But going back to this fight, what are we supposed to get out of Zara Fairn dos Santos here? I don't know. I seriously don't know. Again, Fairn's plus 240. There's no value in that. Minus 300. I think now trending to actually minus 325 since I made the graphic. Jacqueline Cavalcanti. It's never a surefire thing when you bet on women's MMA. I'll just be honest with you. But Cavalcanti's going to win this fight. Do I think she gets a finish? I don't think so. Fairn went the distance against Josiane Nunes, and Nunes is actually pretty good. And Josiane Nunes, if they were to bring back the 145-pound championship for the women's, believe it or not, the championship fight, I think, would be Josiane Nunes versus Norma Dumont. It would be probably 2 Brazilian fighters fighting for the championship. We'll see if they actually book that ever, or the rare chance Ronda Rousey comes back and they book Rousey and Norma Dumont. I don't know. Or Amanda Nunes, which I doubt. Even hell, I could see Holly Holm, honestly, going up to 145 if they keep it around. Anyways, I think Cavalcanti wins. I don't think it's that competitive. She's just going to go out there and absolutely dominate. Give me Cavalcanti to win by unanimous decision. She's really good on the ground. She's really good on the feet, especially more than Zara Fairn dos Santos is. All right, on to our next one. We've got a fight with 2 UFC debuting fighters here. It's Morgan Charriere taking on another UFC debut fighter in Manolo Zecchini here. Good fight. Morgan Charriere is a big favorite at minus 305. You've got his opponent here in Zecchini coming back up plus 245. So where did the UFC get both these guys? Well, Morgan Charriere is 18-9-1 in his professional career. He's fought basically everyone that Cage Warriors has possibly thrown at him in the past. He was... he challenged for the Cage Warriors featherweight championship before, he was the featherweight champion. He lost it. Then he fought for the interim featherweight championship. He did not win that fight, but since then, Charriere has won 3 straight fights in a row. Now here he comes in the UFC. Again, Charriere has fought a lot of different guys in Cage Warriors. That's why when you look at the record, 18-9-1, it's not great, but this will be his 29th professional fight. He's been around for a very long time. Charriere went 6-3 in Cage Warriors and then fought a lot early in his career where he didn't really find that much success in the 100% fight promotion. He went 3-5 over there, and that was the beginning of his career. 3 of his losses were in his first 5 fights. He started his career 2-3. So, in his actual, if you take away his first 5 fights, which you probably should, I'm not saying don't actually do this on his actual record, but it puts him at 16-6-1, which is a lot better than 18-9-1, right? So, anyways, Charriere gets Manolo Zecchini here. For Zecchini, 11-3 professionally. He's fighting at the Venator FC promotion. That's where Marvin Vettori used to fight. Now, was not the champion over there. But Zecchini has been good. Professional record of 11-3. Really good on the feet. He's a Jackson Wink guy, I do believe. Is Zecchini, 26 years old. He's obviously Italian. That's where most Italian fighters will fight when they start off, is in Venator. Again, Charriere is 27, fighting out of France. Zecchini, 26, fighting out of Italy. Again, 2 guys making their UFC debut. It's an interesting fight. In the featherweight division, it's a very interesting fight. Because, since the Apex days, we haven't really seen a lot of these fights where it's UFC debut fighter versus UFC debut fighter. Now, we're going to get another one later on this card that I'm going to talk about. But it's a really interesting matchup, again, with 2 guys making their promotional debut. What to expect in this fight? I think, probably going to see a striking fight. Like, yeah, Charriere isn't horrible on the ground, but he's probably going to try to get it done on the feet. That's where he is best at, and that's where Manolas and Cheney is best at as well. Again, I think you see a striking fight. I think it's an entertaining fight. I think this is good. This is a really fun fight. Again, the next fight will be two guys who are making their UFC debut as well. But when you look at the odds, you got -305 for Morgan Charriere. You got +235 for Manolas and Cheney. I don't anticipate this one to make the distance or to go to the distance. I don't think this is going to go 15 minutes. I think this will be an all-out war on the feet. Two guys making the UFC debut. They are going to go out there and they are going to throw. I know, again, you don't always see finishes at the featherweight division, but this feels like a fight that you will see it in. Again, two guys who are just hitting their stride, making their UFC debut. I wouldn't be surprised if Manolas and Cheney just catches him, because, again, Morgan Charriere has lost before in the past. Now, again, Charriere has never lost by knockout. One loss by submission. You got to go all the way back to a submission loss, which would be a while ago, I do believe. I think it was back in like 2015. I think those when we lost by submission. All the other ones are going to be by decision. So 8 losses by decision for Charriere. For Manolas and Cheney, he has been finished once in the feet. That goes back to Cage Warriors in 2019, where he lost by knockout. His only fight in Cage Warriors was a knockout loss. I think Morgan Charriere is going to come in there. I think he's going to beat him. I think it's going to be a really good fight, but I'm going to go with Morgan Charriere to go out there and win this fight by second round TKO. The last Pirate is going to get it done. Again, I think to a certain extent you got to favor the fighter who is from France. This is a card in Paris from the Accor Arena. I think Morgan Charriere gets the job done. He wins it in front of his home fans. Morgan Charriere picks up the victory by second round TKO. All right, on to the next one. Again, two guys making their UFC debut as well. We've got Ghemmouri taking on Callan Loughran in this fight. For Ghemmouri, he is going to be the home fighter, again, fighting out of France. He takes on Ireland's own in Loughran in this fight. For Loughran, 4-0 in Cage Warriors. He's the defending Cage Warriors bantamweight champion. For Ghemmouri, coming off his last win in Brave CF, his only fight so far in 2023. He's been fighting in Brave a lot. He's 3-0 over there. Fought in UAE Warriors before that. He has traveled, though, from promotion to promotion. And again, it's odd when you get fights, again, where it's UFC debut versus UFC debut. And on top of that, both these guys have not fought in the Contender Series before. Like, usually the UFC is pooling a lot of their fighters from the Contender Series, like how they made Shitty and Joe Kawani go to the Contender Series, even though Joe Kawani showed a horrible fight IQ in his last fight against Bashar Al-Sheshek in Singapore. Like, why go for a takedown when you have the guy beat on the feet? I don't know. But usually, again, that's what the UFC has been doing. They'll put guys in the Contender Series basically no matter who they are. Like, obviously, if they sign Michael Venom Page, MVP is not going to go through the Contender. But most of their guys, they put through the Contender so they can give them the 12K to show, 12K to win contract. I'm assuming these guys are getting something like that. They're probably getting 20 and 20, probably, because they didn't have to fight through the Contender. But it's two guys making the UFC debut again. They're fighting each other. For Callan Loughran, again, a guy who goes up there and gets finishes. He's got 5 wins by knockout, 2 by submission, and 1 by decision. For Ghemmouri, 3 by TKO, 4 by submission, and 5 by decision. When you look at these two guys, I think, Loughran is going to be the favorite in this fight. He's at -310. Ghemmouri's going to be at +250. It's a fight, though, that, like, honestly, I would not touch at all, like, betting-wise. I just don't think it makes sense, because, again, you don't know what to expect. Like, yeah, again, Loughran has been really good. He's fought really well in Cage Warriors. He's expected to go out there and he's expected to win the fight, obviously. But you don't know where you're going to get at a guy whose nickname is literally the Desert Warrior, and who has been on a roll, who has not lost a fight since 2015. Ghemmouri's 12-1. Loughran is undefeated at 8-0. You got a guy coming over from Cage Warriors, the champion. Again, Ghemmouri has been good in his career as well. It's a tough fight to call. It honestly is. Like, again, I think I'm going to go with Loughran to win this fight. I think Callan goes out there, and I think he wins the fight. I think he'll probably get it done by knockout. I'm going to say in the second round. His last 4 fights have all ended in the second round by TKO, so I'm going to go with that same theme here by second round TKO. However, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Ghemmouri is able to go out there and get the upset. Again, it's in France. This is where, it's his home country. He's not from Paris, but still, I think it's, again, I would not put money on it. I think it's a tougher fight. I think Loughran goes out there and he goes out there and picks up the victory. I'm going to take him by knockout in the second round. Both these guys, though, are going to go out there and throw. I think Ghemmouri, if anything, might look to switch it up and take it to the ground, because if he does get beat on the feet, that option is definitely there for him. He's a pretty solid ground fighter. But I'm going to take Loughran to win this fight. He's going to be able to go out there and win this one. This is supposed to be on the main card, because I think they're going 6-fight main card, 6-fight, or well, actually, no, it was 11 fights on this card. So yeah, they're probably going 6-fight main card, 5-fight undercard. So yeah, this is going to start off the main card, and I think Loughran, I'm going to butcher that name a million times, wins this fight by second round TKO. On to our next one, you get another French fighter. Actually, so far, I think in every fight we've had a French fighter except for the first two. Yeah, that trend is going to be broken in the next fight, but after the Volkan fight, it is going to be French fighters in every single fight for these English for the entire way out. I think I combined the and this. Anyways, William Gomis takes on Lucas Almeida. For Gomis, so far in the UFC, he is 2-0, picking up a win over Jarno Aarons in his first fight. Obviously, Aarons lost to Sung Woo Choi in his last fight in Singapore. Gomis will be taking on Lucas Almeida, who's 14-2 and 1-1 in the UFC, dropping his last fight to 1 Pat Sabatini. Sabatini was able to go in there and arm triangle him in the second round. I think that's why a lot of people are going with Gomis, because again, Gomis has seen success so far in the promotion. The Francis Marshall fight, he wins it by split decision. It's, again, I talked about it. I believe I talked about. Did I talk about this fight recently? I feel like I have. It wasn't a very good fight. It was kind of boring, actually. Francis Marshall goes 15 for 132 on his striking attempts. Gomis gets the win. There's nothing really that impressive, honestly, in that fight. And then the Jarno Aarons fight, honestly, wasn't that great either. Gomis just kind of holds him down, which, you know, does he want to do that against Lucas Almeida? I don't know. I mean, probably, because Almeida is good on the feet, but again, Pat Sabatini was able to go in there and pretty much dominate him on the ground. Almeida's first fight in the UFC, that was really good. It's a knockout win over Michael Trezano. It's actually a really good fight. He wins fight of the night on that Volkov-Rosenstruik card in the summer of 2022. Yeah, you forgot that happened, because I sure did. Lucas Almeida, though, goes up there. He wins the fight by TKO in the third round. Again, he drops Trezano twice. Trezano knocks him down once as well. It's a really good fight, again, that gave Almeida some momentum going into that Sabatini fight, but Sabatini went out there, and again, it just dominated him on the feet. There's really nothing on the ground. There's really nothing Almeida was able to do in that one. First round, all Sabatini on the ground. At second round, all Sabatini on the ground. I mean, hell, the fight lasted for 6 minutes and 48 seconds. Pat Sabatini had Lucas Almeida down for 6 minutes and 27 seconds. There was only 21 seconds in this fight that the fight was on the feet. Almeida did not stand a chance stand-up-wise, or ground-wise, against Pat Sabatini. That's what Sabatini's going to do to you. For William Gomis, again, I feel like the same approach is probably going to be taken here. I know Francis Marshall was the one pushing the pace on the ground, at least in their last fight. However, you look at what Gomis was able to do to Jarno Aarons, I just don't think Almeida's ground game and his defensive wrestling is all that great. I think that's the big pathway to victory here for William Gomis. I think it's the obvious, pathway for Gomis to win this fight. I don't think it's going to be all that entertaining, but I think the hometown guy is going to win. You look at Tapology picks, 86% going with William Gomis. You've got 14% going for Lucas Almeida. Gomis 12-2 professionally. Almeida 14-2. At minus 165, I don't hate the odds at all for William Gomis. Gomis probably by decision is probably going to boost those odds as well. Probably not going to get that great of value out of that, though. But I think Gomis wins, and again, I don't think it's all that competitive, honestly. I think, again, Almeida's ground game isn't all that good. Obviously, yeah, he has gotten submission wins in the past, but Sabatini was able to go out there and dominate. I think Gomis is probably going to be able to do the same exact thing like he was able to do to Jarno Aarons. He was able to neutralize Aarons and hold him down. I think he's able to neutralize Lucas Almeida and hold him down as well. So yeah, give me William Gomis to win this fight by unanimous decision. Okay, on to our next one. Yeah, that's not the same fighter. That is different fighters. That's not a before and after picture. That's Volkan Oezdemir taking on the UFC debuting fighter here in Bogdan Guskov in this fight. Guskov fighting out of Uzbekistan, from Uzbekistan, but training and fighting, I believe, out of Russia. For Volkan Oezdemir, this is a guy who dropped his last fight to Nikita Krylov. He got back on the winning ways, though, by beating Paul Craig in the summer of 2022. It was a fight that a lot of people were taking Paul Craig. I took Volkan Oezdemir because I was like, okay, if Craig can't take him down, which Oezdemir is a very tough guy to take down, what is Paul Craig going to do? He was able to do nothing. So again, Volkan, he still shows that he can go out there and can strike with some really good guys. It's just he's been booked against some really tough opponents. You look at what Volkan Oezdemir has fought, and honestly, probably the worst thing that could have happened to Volkan Oezdemir was fight for the World Championship so quickly. Because once you fight a guy like Daniel Cormier, and once you fight for the World Championship, you are only getting top 5, top 10 fighters until you drop out of those ranks. Because you look at what Volkan Oezdemir did when he came into the UFC. Beat Ovin St. Preux in his first fight. He beats Misha Serkinov. He beats Jimmy Manuwa. He knocks out Jimmy Manuwa. Then he goes out there and fights Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier, does pretty well against him. It's a second round finish for Cormier. The first round, though, is probably won by Volkan Oezdemir. Oezdemir beats DC in the first round, but then DC takes him down, just holds him down, gets him in the crucifix, and dominates him in that second round. Obviously, that was the precursor to Cormier versus Miocic. Anyways, Cormier beats Oezdemir. At the time, Cormier was the champion. It was John Jones coming off the suspension, even though Cormier said it was a vacant title fight just because he wanted it to be a vacant title fight, but it was technically Cormier was the champion and Oezdemir was the challenger. So then they book Oezdemir in a main event over in Canada. He fights Anthony Smith. Now, again, another fight Oezdemir is supposed to win, but Anthony Smith wins. Anthony Smith gets him in the ground and submits him with a rear naked choke. And Anthony Smith says, UFC, my name's Anthony Smith, and I would like a world championship shot. He gets it, he loses to John Jones. Anyways, Oezdemir then fights Dominic Reyes. He loses the fight to Dominic Reyes by split decision. Now, Dominic Reyes would then, after that, go on to get a title shot. It's a very close fight. When you look at it, I think Dominic Reyes won, but again, Oezdemir, it was a boring fight, but Oezdemir held his own against Dominic Reyes. Okay, then he goes down the ranks a little bit, fights Ilir Latifi, beats Ilir Latifi by second round TKO in Uruguay. That's what's supposed to happen. He's supposed to dominate a guy who is just primarily a wrestler in Ilir Latifi. That's what he does to him. He knocks down Latifi twice, wins the fight. Then he beats Alexander Rakic. Now, did he really beat Alexander Rakic? That's a fight in Busan, South Korea. You're looking at rounds 2 and 3 for Oezdemir. The first round obviously going for Rakic. It's close. It is razor thin, that fight. I understand the scorecards for Oezdemir. I'm not mad at it. Then he welcomes Yuri Prochazka to the UFC. Now, you knew Prochazka was good. People just didn't know how good Prochazka was. Obviously, at the time, he was the rising champion before he came into the UFC. Prochazka knocks him out cold, second round knockout. Now, when is Yuri Prochazka and Alex Pereira happening? I don't know. It should be happening soon, but who knows when that's happening. Anyways, then after that, Volkan goes on to fight Magomed Ankalaev. He loses to Ankalaev by decision, then gets Paul Craig, beats him, and then loses to Nikita Krylov. Now, we haven't even talked about his opponent here, the Uzbekistan fighter in Bogdan Guskov here. For Guskov, 4-fight winning streak. But who has Guskov fight? He hasn't fought all that great of guys. He just really hasn't. His last loss is a knockout loss in the first round against a guy who I'm not even going to try to say his name. He's 36-9 professionally. He fought in Bellator a couple times. Fought in ACB as well. He lost to Albert Duraev in ACB. But, I mean, again, Guskov, he's going to come in there and he's going to swing. That's what I've seen out of Bogdan Guskov. Really good power. He's won his last 4 fights by first round knockout. That's what he's going to look to do. Guskov is going to look to replicate basically exactly what Yuri Prochazka did in his UFC debut to Volkan Oezdemir. That's what he's going to try. Because again, it worked for Yuri Prochazka, and Yuri Prochazka became the world champion. Now, am I saying Bogdan Guskov is going to become a UFC champion one day? No. I'm honestly not even picking him to win this fight, I'll be honest with you. But I think it's a really good opportunity for him. I think it's, Oezdemir is that guy who is a tough entry-level UFC fight. It 100% is. Oezdemir is really good. He's supposed to fight Asbat Mirzakhanov in this fight, which I think would have been an incredible fight and a really interesting fight. But again, Oezdemir is a guy who's going to challenge you. He is 6-6 in the UFC. He has been there, done that in the promotion. It's interesting that he's got to fight a guy like Bogdan Guskov here, who again is a relatively unknown. It feels like a sort of Sean Strickland to Boots Magomedov fight, where it's like, okay, Magomedov at the time was, but like Magomedov was known. He fought in the PFL before. Hell, I made a whole short film about the guy that some people watched. But it kind of feels like it's kind of that fight, right? And Sean Strickland, obviously, after he beat Abus, was rewarded with the world championship opportunity because, again, it was a big step for him to take that Abus Magomedov fight. A fight that, again, really, rankings-wise, did nothing for Strickland. Obviously, it granted him a world championship opportunity, but did nothing at the time for him rankings-wise. Now, again, he's in a world championship fight, but it just didn't make sense for him to take that fight instead of fighting a guy like, I don't know, Jack Hermanson, right? Like, I'm just throwing out a random guy in the weight class. I know he's already beat Hermanson, but still, it kind of feels like that type of fight here. Again, Guskov is taking this on somewhat short notice, but really not that short a notice. Like, this fight has been announced for a little bit at this point, because, again, Mirzakhanov pulled out a couple weeks ago. I think Oezdemir wins. I think Oezdemir goes out there and wins the fight by second round knockout. Another second round knockout pick here. I think Guskov is really going to go for it in the first round, though, because that's what he does. Like, Guskov, again, his last 4 wins have been by first round knockout. But I think Volkan Oezdemir is able to weather the storm. I don't think he lets Guskov finish him in the first round. I think he's going to turn around and win the fight by knockout in the second. Now, Oezdemir has not gotten a knockout finish since 2019 against Ilir Latifi, but I'm thinking and I'm hoping Volkan Oezdemir This is going to be a sort of levels fight. Like a wise man once said, Corey Anderson, there are levels to this. I think Oezdemir is going to kind of levels game Guskov here. And I think he goes out there and wins the fight. I think Volkan Oezdemir wins this fight by second round knockout. On to our next one. We have got in the lightweight division, we have got obviously France's own Benoit Saint-Denis taking on the former UFC headliner in Thiago Moises. For Moises, 17-6 professionally. Coming off a win over Ezequiel Costa by second round submission over in Brazil. Before that, a win over Christos Giagos. In all fairness, it was two guys that Thiago Moises was a huge favorite to beat, and it was two fights that, he was a huge favorite in both those. Now he gets into guy in Benoit Saint-Denis. Saint-Denis is, 3-1 in the UFC, I do believe? Yeah, 3-1 in the UFC. He's a slight favorite coming into this one. It's interesting, because I think Moises is still pretty good. I think, just Moises has been around for a while. He's fought 10 fights. Don't forget, this is a guy that did come out of the Contender Series, though. Just Moises has been incredibly active since 2018. Again, fought Beneil Dariush in his first fight in the UFC, which is crazy. He's fought some of the best guys. Now, he beat Bobby Green in a fight that nobody thought he won. Got a fight against Islam Makhachev and he lost to Joel Alvarez. But again, Thiago Moises has fought tough fights. And now here he goes against Benoit Saint-Denis in this fight. Okay, so I think Benoit Saint-Denis is going to have the striking advantage. Like, Moises' striking game is okay, but again, he is going to try to go in there and he's going to try to grapple guys. Saint-Denis is not a bad grappler as well. Obviously, his last fight, he beat an undefeated Ismael Bonfim by submission in the first round. That was only 2 months ago, and he's turning it right around, or 3 months ago. Now he's turning it right into a fight here in Paris, France. But he's also got a finish win over Gabriel Miranda in the second round over in France last year, and then he submitted Nicolas Stoltza in his second fight in the UFC. Obviously, his first fight was the fight against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, where Benoit Saint-Denis ate shit for 15 minutes and still stayed in the fight and lost it by unanimous decision. But if there's one thing, Benoit Saint-Denis is not going to get knocked out. This guy has got a iron chin. It's not able to be cracked. And, he's going to stay out there and he's going to keep going forward. How does Moises win this fight? It's going to have to be with the ground game. I mean, that's where Moises will have the best opportunity to win this fight, obviously. But at the same time, Saint-Denis is good on the ground too. Like, you look at what Saint-Denis is able to do to guys like Bonfim, Nicolas Stoltza isn't the greatest UFC name, but the Bonfim fight is really telling because Bonfim, again, a guy who had a lot of hype at the time, wasn't undefeated, he's 19-3, but it was on a huge win streak. He hadn't lost a fight since 2014 at Renato Moicano. Like, again, Bonfim was on a run and Saint-Denis shut him down and finished him in the first round. I think this is a really good fight because I think it's really going to test what Saint-Denis is able to do as well. Now, I think Saint-Denis, again, will have the clear advantage on the feet. That's where Saint-Denis is going to have the best opportunity to win this fight. On the ground, though, this fight is so evenly matched. I think neither guy is going to really have a clear and decisive advantage on the ground. So that's why I think on the feet, that's where Benoit Saint-Denis is going to be able to do his most damage. I think that's where Benoit Saint-Denis is going to win this fight. So I'm going to give this fight to Saint-Denis. I don't think he gets a finish, though. A lot of people are taking Saint-Denis by finish here. I think he gets it done by decision. I think he's able to get Thiago Moises down at some points, but not get caught in a submission. But I think for the most part, this fight will be contested on the feet, and Benoit Saint-Denis is able to go out there in front of the French crowd. He's going to win at home yet again. Benoit Saint-Denis goes to 4-1 in the UFC with a decision victory over Thiago Moises. On to the co-main event. Now, a very interesting fight here between Manon Fiorot and Rose Namajunas. Fiorot, 10-1 professionally, undefeated in the UFC, 5-0, and she takes on Thug Rose Namajunas. Now, really interesting this is the fight Namajunas comes back to. Really interesting. Why? Because she has 2 wins over the strawweight champion. Like, I know she lost the championship in literally the most boring championship fight in UFC history, but it doesn't make sense to me. Because why would Thug Rose go up? She's already beat Zhang Weili twice. If she's not granted an immediate fight at 15, which she probably isn't because there are fighters there, she would have to fight Tatiana Suarez at 15. That would probably be her fight at 115 pounds to get the title shot. Because this is where I think the UFC is going to do it at 115, right? They're going to do Zhang Weili and Yan Xiaonan. They have to do that fight. I think I will excuse the UFC for doing Zhang Weili and Yan Xiaonan in a main event in China for a pay-per-view, because that is going to make them bank in China. 2 Chinese fighters fighting in the main event for a world championship just makes sense. Now, they can put on a fight night and make it for free and make it so we don't have to all stream it, or pay for it, obviously. Pay for all the pay-per-views. But right? It just makes sense. So that's probably what they have to do next. Tatiana Suarez, the only two fighters who aren't booked. Carlos Barza is, not active right now. Rose Namajunas is fighting 125. Mackenzie Dern's booked against Jessica Andrade. And then Marina Rodrigues booked against Michelle Waterson. Obviously, Rodrigues was not in the title chase. Lemos just lost to Zhang Weili. Tatiana Suarez is probably going to fight Vina Janjihoba. I think that is probably going to be the fight that happens next. Now, I think Tatiana Suarez just runs right through her. I think Lemos is probably going to take a step back. She'll probably get booked in a fight like either against Tisha Torres or Tabitha Ricci probably. But yeah, I think Suarez will get Janjihoba next. And I think Yang Jianan deserves to fight for the World Championship. But again, Rose Namajunas, hell, if Thug Rose requested a fight against Vina Janjihoba, she'd probably get it, and she'd probably beat Vina Janjihoba. That would be the fight to get her a championship fight for the third time against Zhang Weili, a fight she's already beat twice. But instead, she's going up to 125 to fight Manon Fiorot, who is a killer, who has not lost a fight so far, who is an incredible kickboxer. Just doesn't make sense to me why Rose is doing this, because I think she's going to lose. I think she is going to lose. Because I don't think Thug Rose is able to get Manon Fiorot down. I don't think she is. Like, Rose isn't a bad wrestler, obviously, but I think Manon Fiorot is going to be able to keep the fight standing. And in a stand-up fight, we're taking Manon Fiorot to beat Rose Namajunas, right? Fiorot minus 185, plus 155 for the former strawweight champion, the former two-time strawweight champion in Thug Rose Namajunas. Again, Rose, I think, has the capability of winning this fight. I don't think it's a for sure thing that she is losing. I think, again, the possibility is there that Thug Rose is able to go out there and take down Manon Fiorot and just kind of lay on her for 25 minutes. Thug Rose was able to take down Zhang Weili. She's able to take down Carlos Barza, I think, once. Her wrestling is there. Like, there is a possibility where she could just go out there and grapple Manon Fiorot. But Manon Fiorot has only been taken down once so far in her UFC career. It's against Jennifer Maia. It's a fight that, again, Manon Fiorot won every single round in over in Columbus, Ohio. Her last fight was the win over Katlyn Kuchagian, where she wins it by unanimous decision. Again, Fiorot just kept the fight standing, and she outstruck Katlyn Kuchagian, even though she lost the third round to Katlyn Kuchagian. So I don't think Manon Fiorot is this killer that everyone thinks she is. Obviously, she came to the UFC, picked up, I think her first win in the UFC was crazy. It was a big, she ran right through Victoria Leonardo. She kicked Leonardo in the head and she beat her. Then she beats Tabitha Ricci, who is a top 15 fighter, but not at 125 or 115 pounds. But then she hasn't gotten a finish since. She beats Mayra Bueno Silva, which now, looking back at it, is a good win. Now, Bueno Silva has found her way to 135. She beat Holly Holm, but I think that fight's getting overturned because I think some drugs Silva took, I think. She beats a former title challenger in Jennifer Maia, a fighter in Jennifer Maia who won a round against a world champion in Valentina Shevchenko, then beats Katlyn Kuchagian by unanimous decision. Again, though, it's not like Manon Fiorot's like, I think she's good. I don't think she's like the killer we thought she was, though, honestly. Like, she's not going to go out there and just knock out everybody. Like, if I'm being honest, I think Alexa Grasso beats Manon Fiorot. Erin Blanchfield would be a really interesting fight because Blanchfield did struggle some with Tyler Santos, but was able to clinch up with Santos, win some exchanges. Real quick, I think Erin Blanchfield was a really good 5-round fighter. I think in 3-round atmospheres, though, I think she can get beat by some of these better fighters. But if she was to get Alexa Grasso in a 5-round fight or Valentina Shevchenko in a 5-round fight, I think Blanchfield is going to be really successful in those opportunities. But again, like, if she got Tyler Santos in a 5-round fight on Saturday in Singapore, I think she beats her probably in the 4th or 5th round. I think Blanchfield, her cardio is there. She kind of feels like the Merab of 125 pounds to a certain degree. And I think Erin Blanchfield's really good. It's just, again, it depends on, the form, the conditions around the fight. Anyways, Fiorot and Namajunas is interesting, but I think Manon Fiorot is a better striker. Now, I don't think she's going to knock her out, but again, I think striking-wise, she's able to outstrike Namajunas. She's going to be a whole lot bigger than Namajunas as well, again, because Fiorot is a natural 125er. It feels like Thug Rose is a natural 115-pounder. That's why I was just really surprised this fight even got booked at 125 pounds. Again, I talked about when we started talking about this fight, the conditions around it just don't make sense. Like, why is Thug Rose going up when, again, she has beat the world champion twice at 115 pounds? There's no need to go up and have to fight the number one contender or fighter who is in the top 5 in order to, be next in line after Erin Blanchfield. They'd probably give Thug Rose the fight for the championship just because she's Rose Namajunas. But again, make it make sense. I think the pathway to the championship for Rose under 15 pounds is right there. Like, even if if she beats Manon Fiorot, she could easily just go down to 115 pounds. They would give her the next title shot. I mean, again, though, Tatiana Suarez is there, and it feels like Suarez is going to become the champion at 115 pounds. She's probably going to become the champion for a very long time. I think, again, that fight between Suarez and Zhang Weili, when it inevitably happens, I think it's going to be a really great fight. But, again, I think Fiorot goes out there and outstrikes Thug Rose. I think she just I think Rose Namajunas will have her moments, but I think this will be a fight where Fiorot shows her kickboxing skills. She shows that she is the way better striker. I don't know how well Rose Namajunas will fight in terms of wrestling. I don't know if she's able to get Fiorot down. And then, oh, by the way, is she able to hold Manon Fiorot down? That's a whole other question as well. I think Manon Fiorot goes out there and picks up the victory. I'm going to take Manon Fiorot to win every single round. Actually, if Kim Kuchagin was able to win a round, maybe Rose Namajunas wins a round. However, Manon Fiorot at home wins this fight by unanimous decision. Now on to the main event. What a interesting stylistic fight here. We have got Cyril Gane taking on Serghei Spivac. This is a good one. This is a really good fight, and it's a real intriguing fight as well, because you look at what happened to Cyril Gane in his last fight, losing the World Championship fight to Jon Jones. He gets absolutely dominated. I think the narrative coming out that fight is that Cyril Gane cannot wrestle. Cyril Gane has absolutely zero wrestling. He got taken down by Francis Ngannou, and Jon Jones was able to go out there and obliterate him in the first round. It's a fair assessment of the fight. Now, is it a fair assessment to say that Cyril Gane has absolutely zero grappling? No. But I think this is a very tough stylistic matchup for him. Serghei Spivac will go in there and he will wrestle you. Watch what he did to Derek Lewis in his last fight. He goes out there and he dominates Derek Lewis wrestling. He does not let Lewis breathe down there. Before that, he dominates Augusto Sakai against Sakai. Is not very good at this point of his career. He beats Greg Hardy before that. Like, by far the best win, though, for Spivac is going to be the Derek Lewis fight. Obviously, it's Derek Lewis. It's in a main event. It was like a 1 in the morning on the West Coast and 4 in the morning in the East Coast. But anyways, it was in the apex of all places, too. Couldn't even put it in, Korea. Anyways, Spivac is a tough stylistic matchup for Cyril Gane. He just is. But we are going to find out, and the question I will propose to you is Cyril Gane that bad of a grappler? Or is that how good Jon Jones is? Now, Jon Jones being Jon Jones points to the fact that it probably is just that's how good Jon Jones is. However, the thing that strikes me is Francis Ngannou, because Ngannou was able to take him down. Ngannou had a lot of success in the wrestling, those championship rounds against Cyril Gane. Now, Cyril Gane again gets the takedown in the 5th round, and he pulls Ngannou on top of him in the 5th round, looking for a heel hook, where if he just rode it out on the ground after getting the takedown, Cyril Gane is the world champion. And then, again, he would just lose it to Jon Jones right after. But I made the case before the Ngannou fight, and the case is still here. Cyril Gane is the best striker in heavyweight history. He is by far the best striker that the UFC has ever seen in this division. Better than Ngannou, because he outstruck Ngannou. Better than Derek Lewis, obviously. Derek Lewis is a good striker, but just got a lot of power and he just throws. He's better than, Cain Velasquez. Stipe Miocic. Seriously, Cyril Gane is the best striker in UFC heavyweight history. The problem is the wrestling. If Cyril Gane could wrestle, he'd never lose. The problem is, again, you just don't know how good of a wrestler he is. Jon Jones was able to go out there and dominate him on the ground. Francis Ngannou basically won the world championship fight because of his takedowns. So who do they match him up with? A striker in Serghei Spivac. A grappler and wrestler in Serghei Spivac. It's by far the biggest fight of Spivac's career, because it's a fight that potentially puts Spivac in a world championship fight. Maybe not, but honestly, seriously, you gotta look at it. The heavyweight division is interesting because you don't know what happens to Jon Jones after the Stipe fight. I think we are all under the assumption that Jon Jones is going to be Stipe Miocic. I think that's a very fair take in that fight. Okay, Serghei Pavlovich is coming off the win over Curtis Blades. He's waiting at number 2. Tom Aspinall's waiting at number 3. Tom Aspinall said he was going to be in the crowd for this fight between Gane and Spivac. It kind of entails that he wants nothing to do with Serghei Pavlovich, at least right now. Sure, they were booked before in the past, but it kind of feels like Aspinall, after he beat Marcin Tybura, said basically, I want the winner of Gane and Spivac. Okay, so that kind of just frees up the winner of this fight to fight Tom Aspinall. Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic. We're assuming Jon wins. There's 2 options. Jones stays, Jones fights Serghei. Honestly, I don't think Jon Jones is going to stick around to fight Serghei Pavlovich. I really just don't think it makes sense for him. It's a fight that, okay, he beats a really tough guy and picks up a really big win, but legacy-wise, what does that do for Jon Jones? Nobody outside the UFC knows who Serghei Pavlovich is. That's no disrespect, but it's just true. Nobody knows who Serghei Pavlovich is. So it doesn't make sense for Jon Jones to go out there and, basically put his legacy on the line against Serghei Pavlovich, a very tough guy who could beat him, even though I think Jones would just take him down and hold him down. Okay, if Aspinall is really being booked against the winner of Spivac and Gane, okay, the winner of that 3-man rotation, whoever gets out of this, circle, is going to be the next will get a title opportunity out of this. So if Gane is able to go out there and win 2 fights in a row, I think he should be guaranteed a 3rd fight at the World Championship, just because, again, if he beats Spivac and he beats Tomas Aspinall, he should probably get another World Championship shot. Now, where it gets interesting, the one scenario that the UFC is kind of screwed in is if Jon Jones wins against Stipe, Jon Jones retires, Pavlovich is the next title challenger. Aspinall, though, is already booked against the winner of Spivac Gane. Where do you go from there? Because you don't have another fight. I think it's probably Jailton Almeida if Jailton Almeida beats Curtis Blades. But the problem is, again, if Blades beats Jailton Almeida, you can't run Blades and Pavlovich right back because that's who Pavlovich just beat, and then you don't have any fights. You have Volkov and Tuivasa, but you're not giving the winner of that fight a title shot, and then you don't have anyone else. Now, again, if Stipe wins, that's a whole other thing. The only other guy, seriously, I think this is a long time in the future. But seriously, if it all comes down to this, if Jones wins, Aspinall fights the winner of Spivac and Gane, I think Alex Pereira, like, there's seriously a chance either Pereira or Yuri Prohashka could find themselves in a championship fight eventually at heavyweight. I'm just saying, that's like way down the road. Anyways, for now, this fight specifically, it's just based on if you think Cyril Gane can wrestle and stay on the feet against Serghei Spivac. That's where this is where this fight comes down to. It's that simple. Can Gane keep the fight on the feet against Spivac? I don't know. I think there's really good value for Serghei Spivac right now, plus 150. I think, again, it has gone from 140 to 150. Some money, I guess, on Cyril Gane. I think there's a very good chance that Spivac's able to keep the fight or get the fight to the ground and potentially submit Cyril Gane. Now, again, that's Jon Jones. That's how good Jon Jones is. But seriously, I think there's a chance that Serghei Spivac's able to do the same exact damn thing. But again, on the feet, this fight, I've been talking about how much of a gap there is on the ground between these two guys. On the feet, Cyril Gane is so much better than Serghei Spivac. Like, it's not even close. Again, don't forget how good Gane is. Look at his fight against Tai Tuivasa. He's able to eat a punch and stand there and knock out Tuivasa. Look what he's able to do to guys on the feet. Volkov, too. He's that good on the feet, but again, it's all dependent on if he can stay standing against a guy like Serghei Spivac. I'm going to go with Cyril Gane to win the fight because, again, this is going to be quick either way. This will either be a beatdown on the ground by Serghei Spivac or it is going to be a beatdown on the feet by Cyril Gane. I'm going to take the beatdown on the feet. Cyril Gane wins the fight by 2nd round knockout. I don't think Spivac's able to stay up there for more than really 10 minutes until he gets knocked out because that's how good Cyril Gane is. Again, he is a technical striker, but in a fight like this, again, eventually he's going to put it on. Eventually he will knock out a guy who's primarily a wrestler. But again, the problem is, can Spivac wrestle him and can Spivac keep him down? I'm going to say no, but I think it's a very good chance that could happen. But we're going to go with Cyril Gane, Le Bon Gamet to win this fight by 2nd round knockout to close out this card. So folks, thank you for watching our UFC Paris predictions here on the channel with Cyril Gane and Serghei Spivac in the main event. We'll be back next week for, UFC 293 from Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. You've got the middleweight championship fight between Israel Adesanya and Sean Strickland. So that is coming at you next week. But for now, again, Gane and Spivac in the main event from Paris, France. Folks, thank you for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure you like if you did enjoy the video. Folks, thank you for watching, and Mamba forever.